It's been a little while since I've really gotten to like super, politics. The president, Trump, draining the swamp. What's he doing? And I'm sure a lot of you are following along as well. Me and Frank are. We talk about it all the time at lunch. But I haven't done too many videos on it here recently. I can see the man absolutely trying hard as possible to drain the swamp. And I think, because I've said this before myself, I wish him the best of luck. And this is the example I gave, by the way. I said it's like having 100 people in line for one specific position. And there's a swamp member. He fires him. Oh, here's a new guy. He's next in line. Okay, you're hired. Swamp member. Member of the club. Okay, got rid of him. Next one. Swamp member. Next one. Swamp member. And there's a line a mile wide. You are basically inserting yourself into a giant swamp that's been around for a really, really, really long time. And you think you can clean it out. And I want him to badly. He needs to. He's trying. But it's impossible. Okay? We've all come to that conclusion a while back. I know I've talked about this. However, David Stockman, you know who that is. Wasn't President Reagan, he worked for Reagan and stuff. Well, not him, Stockman. Anyways, David Stockman, this is from Zero Hedge, warns Trump that the swamp is undrainable. And I think he's right. Authored by David Stockman via the Daily Reckoning. Approximately 2 months ago, before the election on September 10th, I locked down the final draft of my book, Trumped. In the opening sentence, I ventured the following opinion, which was most certainly not in the mainstream at the time. First, there were 17. Then little Marco, low energy Jeb, and Lion Ted were gone. At length, there was one. And now there is even a chance he may become president. That he did, and contrary to all expectations too. But now there is an excellent chance that Mike Pence will become the 46th occupant of that office. Mike Pence? What? The vice president, right? Well, let's see what he's saying. This time the pundits do see it coming. That's because they are complicit, functioning as self-appointed magistrates of a recount of the 26th election. Indeed, the mainstream media is no longer even in the news business. It's conducting a grand witch hunt and venomous prosecution that will not be sated until the Donald vacates the Oval Office, one way or another, probably by a threatened invocation of the 25th Amendment by the GOP elders on Capitol Hill. Yes, it sounds a tad far-fetched, but the key to what comes next is hiding in plain sight, he says. The Donald is exceedingly vulnerable because he is an insurgent outsider who will eventually end up alone in the swamp in helpless isolation. Trump's impetuous tweeting is case in point. Take a recent tweet about Germany, for example. It was essentially on point, but amounted to waving a red cape in the face of the already enraged establishment bull. We have massive trade deficit with Germany. Plus, they pay far less than they should on NATO and military. Very bad for the U.S. This will change. That was his tweet. Of course, the establishment's concerns have less to do with peace and security than raising sales, earnings, and stock prices in the Atlantic area's military-industrial complex. And the establishment won't abide any threat to its power. In this vein, the Donald is also pulling America out of the Paris Climate Accords, an establishment totem. Climate denialism is about as offensive to establishment sensibilities as is creationism. So the shrieks of outraged disbelief reached ear-splitting decibels after Trump's announcement. I'm glad the Donald takes on the greatest environmental hoax of the modern era, even if it does accelerate his downfall. That's because it is based on an expansion of government that knows no limits, including the deliberate and systematic distortion of climate data to fit a weak theory that defies common sense and the known facts of the planet's history. In any event, the Donald's jailbreak from the Paris Accords has further isolated him in the Imperial City, even if it does win him plaudits in the Rust Belt. What will be the trigger that finally sends the establishment after Trump? Ultimately, the hammer of fiscal crisis and a crashing stock market will break any remaining loyalty of the GOP elders as they smell the 2018 elections turning into a replay of the rout of 1974. And then the Donald will be gone, and well before 2018 too. I told an audience in Vancouver last Friday that it could happen by February. This February 2018, I guess he's talking about. The bottom line is that the swamp is so undrainable that it will end up making mincemeat of Donald Trump. Needless to say, the ultimate causes of his demise are anchored deep in the failing status quo. Now, I'm just going to tell you, because I've said this numerous times now about this whole situation, the whole John Teeter time traveler story. And if you want to see most all of it, I did some videos on this. Actually, they've got over 100,000 views now. Last time I checked, I had no idea. And it's called John Teeter, T-I-T-O-R, the time traveler, whatever. Look it up. Realist News, John Teeter, and you'll see them. Part 1, 2, 3, and 4 maybe, because they're quite long. It's a fascinating story from 1999, 2000, 2001 that I have to sit back and question sometimes, like, man, was that real or not? Because this is weird. This is like some stuff he was talking about. And he talked about this revolution that would come in America, and it would be the thing that started it, really, that the main cause would be a problem with the elections. So I thought there'd be an election that happened, and someone won, and then they stole it from them right away. That would be my best guess. And it was looking like that was going to happen. Remember, December came around, and they had these delegates coming out. We're going to flip-flop. We're going to flip-flop on Trump. Then the 19th came, and oh, never mind, only one flip-flop. Nothing happened. He still won. And then January 6th or something came, and Congress had to, what's the word they use? Basically seal the deal that, yes, he won, and they can object. And you had Maxine Waters and some other morons objecting. Do you have a signature from a senator? Well, no, I don't yet. Then it's done. Sit down and shut up. Next one. I object. Do you have a signature from a senator? No, I do not, but I'm going to shut up and sit down, So I'm like, wow, that's two things that I was waiting to see, like, oh, they're going to get rid of this guy before he even steps in office. But he made it. He still made it. So I thought, man, they just can't let this guy stay. There's no way. There's no way. And I was saying that from a long time. There's no way he'll be able to stay. But he has thus far. And believe me, I'd love to be completely wrong about thinking that. But again, David Stockman, this guy was in government. And if Donald Trump is taken out in any way, shape, or form, I'd say that was a problem with the elections. The people spoke. This is who we want. Even with the massive fraudulent votes by the DNC, really. The death, people are dead voting and triple voting and all this crap. Even with all that, he still won. So the mass majority of people definitely spoke. And if they pull him out somehow, take him out, to me, that's John Teeter stuff. There was a problem with the elections. The people spoke. The guy barely got 1 year in, and they took him down. And who would not be furious, ready to fight Civil War style if that happened? Knowing we voted for this guy, he's going to drain the swamp, we want our country back, we want all of our rights back, He's going to do it, and then he's taken out, right? You could see where this could go, I should say. And I always said, well, John Teeter said his family on this world line, he made them move to Omaha, Nebraska, which would be the new capital of the United States, ultimately, like in 2032 or something. And I thought to myself, if there's a problem with this election, I was talking about the last one, I'm going to find a way to get the hell out of here and go up there, move, because that's where I want to be. If that's where he told his family to go, that's where I want to go. And the lawyer that was, behind some of this stuff, that was doing work for his family, who verified allegedly that this is real, this guy is real, he verified they absolutely, I can tell you for sure, the family that was here moved there for sure. So I thought to myself, that's where I'd like to go. But then the election happened. Hillary was supposed to win. She didn't win. He won. So, okay, good. Now I've got a house here basically that in 30 days or less I'm going to actually close on, and I'll be owning it. I will not be going to freaking any other state for that matter. I'll be stuck here, and I'll gladly stay here. As a matter of fact, I say stuck, but whatever. I feel like this whole thing was meant to be with me, and that's just where I'm going to stay. So if you want to hear an interesting story, look up the John Teeter Time Traveler, JSNIP4 or Realist News. You will see part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, I believe. Anyways, America is so addicted to war, debt, and central bank-driven false prosperity that even the most resourceful and focused challenger would be taken down by its sheer inertia. But the Donald is so undisciplined, naive, out of touch, thin-skinned, unfocused, and megalomaniacal that he is making it far easier for the swamp critters than they deserve. To a very considerable extent, in fact, he is filling out his own bill of indictment. Moreover, he is totally clueless about how to manage his presidency or cope with the circling long knives of the deep state, which are hell-bent on removing him from office. Accordingly, the single most important thing to know about the present risk environment is that it is extreme and unprecedented. In essence, the Donald is the ultimate bull in an exceedingly fragile china shop, and an already badly wounded one at that. So it is no understatement to suggest that the S&P 500 at 2470 and the Dow at 22,000 is about as fragile as the market has ever been. And Amazon, poster boy for bubble finance, is trading around 190 times earning. Another massive, unbelievable feat for any company. That is, again, flashing, absurd, this should crash, Any untoward pinprick could send it into a tailspin, meaning that the coming political bleeding out of the Donald amounts to a 50,000-pound prick. It is the mighty orange swan that will lay the casino low like never before. The utter fragility of the latest and greatest Fed bubble could not be better proxied than in this astounding fact. During the last 6,000 trading days since the early 1990s, the VIX index closed below 10 on 26 occasions, or just 0.4% of the time. No less than 16 out of those 26 below 10 closes occurred in the last 3 months. Stated differently, in just the last 0.6% of the trading days since 1997, over 65% of the ultra-low VIX readings have occurred. That's complacency begging to be monkey-hammered. That was surely true in late 1999 and early 2000 when the NASDAQ 100 rose by 30% in 3 months. Just as has been recently with the FAM5, or Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Microsoft, gained 33%, or $600 billion since the turn of the year. But this time is actually different in a special sense. We are now at the inflection points, not just of the post-crisis bubble engineered by the Bernanke-Yellen Fed and their fellow traveling central bankers around the world, but the inflection point for the whole multi-decade enterprise of monetary central planning. At the heart of this matter is that the Washington Wall Street establishment rests on a bipartisan political foundation that has no use for existential threats to their continued rule, respectively. So the deep state's prosecution of Trump's incumbency under the Russiagate file is continuing apace, while a calamitous debt ceiling crisis is now less than 2 months away, according to his own Treasury Secretary. The debt ceiling crisis will cause a thunderous panic among the clueless gamblers on Wall Street, and the resulting 40% plunge in the stock market will pave the way for the Donald's eventual demise. At that point, the Donald will truly be friendless. For comparison's sake, consider the fate of Richard Nixon. Notwithstanding 3 decades of network building and the accumulation of vast IOUs from his relentless politicking and campaigning, the GOP establishment sent Nixon packing in August 1974 when the party's demise stood just around the corner. By contrast, the Donald has no GOP network, friends, IOUs, or even history. A mere 12 years ago, he was cavorting with the Clintons at Chelsea's wedding. When the S&P 500 drops below 1,500, there will be panic in the GOP precincts all around Capitol Hill. Then I expect Trump to be escorted to the South Lawn for his final trip aboard the Richard Nixon Memorial helicopter. What is the difference this time? What is different this time, however, is that America is in no shape to weather the ensuing storm. When this guy talks, I definitely listen, okay, because of his background. But the fact that Trump won, he wasn't supposed to win, and all this stuff, and you know me, I don't smoke opium, but there is a teeny, tiny, minuscule amount of hope in me that he'll weather this thing and keep going. But you've already seen Obamacare. They've tried, what, 3 times now? Isn't this the 3rd time? This year, repeal and replace, it failed again. John McCain a couple years ago, we need to get rid of this. We need to repeal and replace this thing. And he cast the final vote, not to repeal and replace, but to keep it. Sorry, piece of crap McCain. I hope his brain cancer eats him alive, to tell you the truth. That's how I feel right now. What a scumbag. And then we have the tax thing. Tax breaks. And what did I tell you? They have to get repeal and replace because they got a way to get $1 trillion out of that thing that will be used as part of the deal for the tax breaks. So that's not happening. How the hell are we going to go to the tax breaks? And believe me, I'm all for it. I'll benefit. Many people will benefit. Great, bring them on. That's what we need. So, again, we'll see what happens. But he is surrounded by people. He's trying to get rid of one. Okay, we'll put this guy in charge. Wait a minute, the guy he put in charge was friends with the last guy. Real good friends with the last guy that was in charge. Oh, and they're invested in the same companies together. And they both work with the Clintons. Oh, good luck, Mr. President. And I mean that. Good luck. I wish him the best. Take care.